From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang and here are the news. On the top story, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. urged Filipinos to reflect on their habits on electricity use and to foster a culture of responsible energy use as the country observes the 2023 National Energy Consciousness Month or NECM. According to the President, the country must also recognize this year's Energy Efficiency Award aimed at recognizing individuals and organizations that exemplify strong dedication to achieving energy conservation and are taking the lead in promoting energy efficiency. This year's awardees, he said, have set a standard for others to follow, showing that sustainable practices can go hand in hand with progress. President Marcos assured the public that the government will continue to explore alternative energy sources and implement policies that encourage energy-efficient practices across all sectors of society. The Philippine Department of Energy or DOE celebrates this month its 51st anniversary and simultaneously leads the observance of the 2023 National Energy Consciousness Month. The agency has lined up for NECM activities geared toward finding sound energy solutions, creating sustainable practices, and embracing emerging energy technologies and applications. The 2023 NECM has for its theme, Sustainable and Responsible Energy Future, Fueling Hope, Lighting the Way, which seeks to trigger conversations on the efficient energy use and rally multi-sectoral support on the government's energy action plan, as well as strongly advocate for energy conservation.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. described his performance for the year 2023 as the year of structural changes which are significant in the country's recovery from all economic challenges left by the COVID-19 pandemic. In an interview with the press at the sidelines of the 50th commemorative ASEAN-Japan Friendship and Cooperation Summit in Tokyo, President Marcos said that structural changes are the solutions to the problem left by the pandemic. President Marcos said that the structural changes in 2023 will have a greater effect in 2024 as he emphasized that the administration has changed the structure of the different agencies by finding the best people for each of those positions. On his outlook for 2024, the president said that the administration's goal for the year to come does not change, which is to continue the modernization of the government. President Marcos arrived in Manila on Monday evening from his successful participation in the 50th commemorative ASEAN-Japan Friendship and Cooperation Summit in Tokyo, where he brought home 14 billion pesos investment pledges from 9 Japanese companies.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said that the country is eyeing a paradigm shift as the traditional methods of diplomacy of the Philippine government is continuously being disregarded by China amid its recent aggression and harassment in the West Philippine Sea. In an interview with Japanese media, President Marcos emphasized that it is about time for the Philippine government to come up with a new way on how to deal with China, as it appeared that the current efforts are showing very little progress. President Marcos described the current diplomatic efforts with China as heading in a poor direction. President Marcos pointed out that the situation in the WPS will not improve if the Philippines will continue to deal with China the same way it is dealing with the current situation in the waters. The Philippines has taken 3 legal steps, such as filing a diplomatic protest with the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, summoning Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Huang Shilian, and making a demarche to the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs officials to call out the China Coast Guard or CCG. The Chinese naval assets water cannoned the vessels of the Philippine Coast Guard or PCG during its recent resupply mission to BRP Sierra Madre in Ayungin Shoal. President Marcos said that the Philippines will continue talking to its partners in the Indo-Pacific region and to the rest of the world if necessary to de-escalate the tension in the WPS. Asked what specific paradigm shift that the Philippine government is thinking about, President Marcos said there are a lot of ideas, but said the government will continue talking to its partners and come up with a joint position, stating their responsibilities as far as the WPS is concerned. President Marcos said that the Philippines has to move quickly in dealing with China in the WPS as it is already affecting the livelihood of the Filipino fishermen. President Marcos was in Japan to attend the 50th anniversary of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN-Japan relations.
Dateline Malacañang.
Secretary Gilberto Chodoro Jr. said Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. will soon issue an executive order to ensure the government's immediate interventions to mitigate the effects of the El Niño phenomenon. The plan to issue an EO was raised during the 15th cabinet convened by President Marcos at the Malacañang Palace in Manila on Tuesday, Teodoro said in a palace briefing. Teodoro said the reactivation of El Niño Task Force was among the mitigation measures to address the impact of the weather phenomenon on the country. He said the task force would also be reorganized.
Ulat ang nangyari sa 15th cabinet meeting po ng ating Pangulo, yan po ang reactivation po ng Task Force El Niño or TFEL. Maglalabas po ang ating Pangulo ng executive order para mapaghandaan ng maaga at masolusyonan ng mabilisan ang maaring maging interventions po na mabilisan at patuloy po na monitoring at pag-aagap, paghahanda po sa maaring maging epekto po ng El Niño. Tutuloy po tayo sa reactivation po ng task force na ibinuo po ng ating Pangulo. Nagkaroon na po ng Task Force El Niño noong 2001 under Executive Order number 16. Ito po ay ni-revive, ngunit ni-revise ng ating pong Pangulo ngayong araw na to. Nagkaroon na po ng National Action Plan na ginawa po ng NEDA at isinabmit na po sa ating Pangulo at batay dito, ginawa po ang task force. Ang constitution po ng task force ay ang DND as chairman o chairperson of the NDRRMC applies particularly in critical infrastructure for standby power and service continuity and to prepare for possible diseases that may be brought about, no? And what is important po for the public to know, there will be an El Niño platform where it will be used to collect data for interagency coordination and for decision making, and also for information of the public, together with the Presidential Communications Office, information dissemination and timely and possibly localized distribution of information to affected areas and LGUs so that they can take appropriate measures will be necessary.
Science and Technology Secretary Renato Celedum Jr., meanwhile, who will co-chair the task force, said the effects of a strong El Nino will be felt under the first or second quarter of 2024. Secretary Celedum, who joined the press briefing, said there will be a possible normal to slightly below normal rainfall by May or June of 2024. Secretary Celedum also said drought may persist in 63 provinces, while dry spell may be felt in 12 provinces by April next year.
Strong El Nino is expected to continue through December, January of 2024, and majority of the global climate model would suggest that El Nino would still persist until March, April to May 2024. But with a transition to El Nino, Southern Oscillation neutral in April, May to June 2024. So essentially, the effects of El Nino will still be covering the first and second quarter of 2024. But then the peak of El Nino in terms of drought will be April of 2024, which is slightly different from the forecast last week or 2 weeks ago, that it will be May. Hence, there will be a possible rainfall which is a normal to slightly below normal by May to June, and hence we can actually still prepare for the effect of El Nino as we have spoken last week. So yun po yung pagbabago. The drought will peak again May 2024. April 2024 with 63 provinces possibly experiencing drought condition and 12 provinces experiencing the dry spell condition. Tagtuyot pareho sa Tagalog yun, mas matindi lang yung isa.
President Marcos earlier emphasized the need to ensure steady water and power supply during the El Nino phenomenon. Environment Secretary Maria Antonia Yulo Loizaga said President Marcos has issued a directive to make sure that water-related infrastructure projects would be multi-purpose. Yulo Loizaga said the government is working with the private sector for the implementation of water-related projects.
So these three, no? So availability, access, affordability, yon po ang pinakamahalaga in terms of water security. Now, in terms of the role po ng DNR in the task force, as you know, there is a WRMO, yung Water Resource Management Office. Ang gawain po nitong office is really to coordinate all the water-related functions ng different agencies in order to ensure that water gets to those that need it most. So dalawa po yung klaseng intervention po namin ngayon, no? As binanggit po ni Sec. Gibo. The first one is yung immediate, no? To make sure that in the urban centers and of course in terms of agriculture and power and manufacturing, there is supply. So ang instruction rin ng Pangulo is to have our infrastructure investments be multi-purpose so that one investment in a kind of infrastructure can generate several values, no? Whether they are for flood control in the end, whether for irrigation, or eventually for water supply and distribution as well. So yung pagka-multipurpose po ng mga investments na ito is also one way to extract the optimal value from a single investment dito sa infra.
Secretary Teodoro said around 23 new committed power projects and 3 battery energy storage systems are scheduled to come in the first quarter of 2024, noting that there is also ongoing development of inventory and coordination of critical facilities.
Dateline Malacañang.
Other news, the Philippine Department of Agriculture, RDA, on Tuesday said the area of standing crops affected by the former tropical depression Kabayan has reached 625,963 hectares. Kabayan now a low-pressure area, damaged 424,673 hectares for rice and 201,290 hectares for corn. The DA said based on the combined data of affected regions 4B, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 as of December 18. No immediate data on the damage caused is available. The DA is collecting the submission of situational reports, particularly on agricultural areas, from its regional field offices.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippines is projected to be the fourth top recipient of remittances this year, a report released by the World Bank said. The World Bank's Migration and Development Brief 39, December 2023 report said the top 5 recipient countries for remittances this year are India with 125 billion US dollars, Mexico with 67 billion US dollars, China with 50 billion US dollars, the Philippines with 40 billion US dollars, and Arab Republic of Egypt with 24 billion US dollars. For 2024, the World Bank said remittance flows to the Philippines are projected to grow by about 5% or 5% to 42 billion US dollars. Data from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP showed that cash remittances from overseas Filipinos that were coursed through banks went up by 3% to 3 billion US dollars in October of 2023 from 2.91 billion US dollars in the same month last year. The growth in cash remittances in October 2023 was primarily due to increased receipts from both land and sea-based workers. From January to October this year, cash remittances amounted to 27.49 billion US dollars, higher by 2.8% than the year ago level of 26.74 billion US dollars. The United States had the highest share of overall remittances during the period, followed by Singapore and Saudi Arabia.
Dateline Malacañang.
Two economists in the academe agreed with the International Monetary Fund's or IMF optimistic 2024 forecast on the Philippine economy, with fiscal policy making, geopolitics, and environmental factors playing a major role in deciding the country's economic direction next year. In the report following its 2023 Article 4 consultation with the Philippines, the IMF Executive Board said real gross domestic product or GDP growth is expected to bounce back in the second half of 2023 and reach 6% in 2024, supported by acceleration in public investment and improved external demand for the Philippines' exports. In an interview, Carlos Manapa, chair at the Economics Department of the University of Santo Tomas or UST, said the global lenders' optimism is based on expectations of more private sector investments, greater government spending, and increased exports next year. Manapat said while the Philippines is likely to remain a net importer in the short term, aggressively pushing the country's export sector forward will positively affect its economic numbers. He said the MIF's apparent bullishness over the Philippine economy may stem partly from renewed confidence in the country's political leadership, among other developments that it deems positive. For his part, Roberto Galang, Dean at Ateneo de Manila's John Gokugwe School of Management or JGSOM, cited three main tailwinds for the government to look into in 2024 if it wants to capitalize on the country's long-term potential. These tailwinds, he said, are effects of the El Nino phenomenon on agriculture, the impact of right-of-way issues on infrastructure targets, and the repercussions of recent geopolitical and peace and order developments. He called for preparations in anticipation of a prolonged dry spell that can lead to water shortages that impact our agricultural output, water supply, and push down consumer spending. Galang also urged government policymakers to clarify right-of-way rules so that infrastructure projects will not continue to be stalled. In its report released December 15, the IMF also said the Philippine government's infrastructure program, opening up of sectors to greater foreign investment and private sector participation through PPP, public-private partnership modalities, will gradually crowd in private investments and help realize a growth potential of about 6 to 6.5% over the medium term. Moreover, Galang said how the government navigates geopolitical issues, such as the territorial dispute in the West Philippine Sea, will have a huge bearing on the attainment of economic growth targets.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, encouraged private companies to implement work from home, or WFH, arrangements amid a rise in coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19 cases. Philippine Labor Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma said working from home not only reduces the risk of spreading the virus in workplaces, but also spares the workers' families from contracting the disease as well. He said this is possible under the Telecommuting Act. Secretary Laguesma, however, said they are not keen on resorting antigen testing in work sites. Meanwhile, Labor Undersecretary Benjo Benavides noted that they have earlier issued a labor advisory regarding work-from-home arrangements. Benavides, however, said they have yet to receive reports of COVID-19 cases in workplaces. On Monday, the Philippine Department of Health, or DOH, reported that the country recorded 2,725 new COVID-19 cases from December 12 to December 18, 50% higher than 1,821 new cases logged in the previous week.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, for Dateline Malacañang, the Philippine Department of the Interior and Local Government, or DILG, pharmaceutical firm AstraZeneca, and various health advocacy groups on Tuesday inked a partnership with 12 provincial governments as part of efforts to combat chronic kidney disease, or CKD. Interior Secretary Benjamin Abalos Jr., AstraZeneca Philippines Country President Lotis Ramin, Diabetes Philippines Immediate Past President Dr. Francis Pasaporte, and representatives from various health groups and provincial government units signed a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, on the expansion of the Addressing Complications Today Through Network of Warriors, or ACT Now, for CKD program at the EDSA Shangri-La Hotel in Mandaluyong City. Secretary Abalos said LGUs can make a big difference in fighting CKD, citing that about 2.3 million Filipinos are suffering from the disease. Under the program, the Act Now for CKD program will be expanded to the provinces of Quirino, Aurora, Cavite, Quezon, Sorsogon, Samar, Capiz, Iloilo, Cebu, Zamboanga del Norte, Agusan del Sur, and Sarangani, where over 1 million Filipinos will get free access to free urine albumin creatinine ratio, or UACR test, as part of CKD screening and prevention. The program was previously rolled out in Baguio, Pasig, Mandaluyong, San Juan, San Fernando, and Pampanga. Pasaporte, meanwhile, said this initiative aims to further the awareness on CKD through risk factor identification and early screening, education of healthcare professionals on recommended disease treatment, and empowering patients to become part of the solution. Meanwhile, Ramin said AstraZeneca is highly committed to forging impactful partnerships to address the needs of patients across the full continuum of chronic kidney disease care. Act Now for CKD is a partnership between the DILG, Diabetes Philippines, AstraZeneca Philippines, Philippine Association of Diabetes Educators, Association of Diabetes Nurse Educators of the Philippines, Dialysis PH Support Group Incorporated, Kidney Transplant Association of the Philippines Incorporated, and Philippine Diabetes Support and Awareness Group Incorporated.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This has been Bea Gaza.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.